Another ancient motif that comes a little bit later. So here we had Alpha and Omega, which is an alphabetical motif, right? The Lamb of God becomes a graphic visual drawing representation. That is also one of the earliest, not as early as Alpha and Omega, but an early graphic representation borrowed from Revelation. And I don't mean Agnus Dei, the Lamb of God, as we have within the Gospels only. So not just the Paschal Lamb symbol of Jesus, but with this motif comes with certain things, the Lamb on Zion in chapter 14. So then I looked and there was the lamb standing on Mount Zion. So sometimes you'll see a lamb standing on a mountain or a lamb in front of the throne of God. And this is very clearly not the imagery of the Gospels and equating Jesus with a lamb, but definitely borrowed from an apocalyptic scene from Revelation. So, for example, here we have the lamb. This is part of a beautiful cover for the Gospels from Ravenna, dating from the 5th century. And here you'll see the lamb with the halo around it, along with scenes of Jesus as he was a human, but then commemorated as the lamb that was slain in Revelation, right? The lamb that has the power that overcomes all the things that Jesus experienced in his human, earthly life. But then supreme over that, implicit in this, is the lamb. Here also we have the lamb represented in a mosaic, also in Ravenna. This is 6th century. On the very top of the ceiling, if you go in and you look straight up in the apse, you'll see the lamb with the halo and the star surrounded by the angels. So this is certainly representing that triumphant lamb in front of the throne of God, represented in chapter 14 and the breaking of the seals. So these are another early motif. Here is something even more explicitly borrowed from Revelation. This is a mosaic that we have in Basilica di Santi Cosma in Damiano in Rome. And here you'll see that scroll in front of the lamb, and it has 7 seals that need to be broken, right? And so in chapter 5, we have one of the elders before the throne says to John of Patmos, "Do not weep, because no one is worthy to unseal the scroll. The Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has conquered so that he can open the scroll and its 7 seals." Ironic that the Lion of the tribe of Judah is represented by paradoxically a lamb, but the lamb is what ultimately in the following verses is the one opening the seals and causing disaster to happen upon the earth as each seal is opened and the horsemen come out, etc. And so here represented, you'll often see the lamb seated in front of the throne, or here kind of on a plinth, on a cushion oftentimes, and then represented in front of it the seals that he is worthy to open. So that's a popular motif. Here's something later, a few centuries. Here we're fast forwarding to the 11th century. This is from the Apocalypse of Saint Severus. So this is an illustration, illumination of the Apocalypse. And here we have quite literally represented, right, the many-eyed lamb with the many horns. So this strange, almost monstrous description of the lamb, very literally represented. And you'll see that now, instead of a scroll, contemporary with its own time, we have a codex-looking thing with seals that need to be broken. So codex is a book that opens like our books today as versus a scroll. And so here it looks more like a codex that can be opened, and these dangling seals. You'll see that also of like seals hanging from a book that the lamb is opening. And then here in the inscription, you have the Latin saying Agnus aperet, opens sextum, 6th sigillum, the 6th seal. So the lamb is about to open the 6th seal in this particular illumination of that manuscript. Going even further, here's another many-eyed lamb, many-horned lamb. Also, again, like on a plinth, right, covered. And here we have the representation of the 4 different creatures borrowed from Ezekiel. Here we have the man, the eagle, the lion, and the bull. This is from an illumination of a manuscript within the British Library. So actually, the British Library has just digitized this, and you can find it of this additional manuscript 35166. It doesn't really have any other title besides that. But here we have the land surrounded by the four creatures, which, as you may know, have come to represent the four evangelists, the four writers of the Gospels. So Matthew being represented by the man, the eagle representing the Gospel of John, the winged lion representing the Gospel of Mark, and the winged bull, the Gospel of Luke. Lots of different reasons and possibilities of why the evangelists are represented by these four, but that's what in Christian iconography, those have come to represent and become their symbols. Here also you'll notice that Christ is bearing a banner, right? And so here we have a further more militaristic, associated with crusader symbol that's being used, right? So you'll see the lamb morphing from what we saw at the very earliest into something carrying a standard. And of course, there's the very popular Agnus Dei, Lamb of God, that's also carrying the cross, right? You'll see that in other Christian iconography, not necessarily exactly the lamb standing on the Mount of Zion, from Revelation 14, but the two are quite related. And oftentimes those two types of depictions of the lamb are put together. So here we have both the cross standard of the banner being held by the strange, monstrous looking lamb from Revelation smushed into one, right? So you'll have an overlap of the two different lambs as we see normally represented from the Gospels, and then the Lamb of God from Revelation overlapping in the way that's they're represented. So these are the two earliest motifs that we usually find of visual representation in Revelation, Alpha and Omega, and also the Lamb of God represented as triumphant above what has happened to Jesus that was slain, resurrected as this all-powerful Lamb who is worthy to open the seals.